Welcome to All Things AI. My name is Ishan, and here with us today in the 18th episode of the All Things AI podcast is Mohan Gulati, an expert in AI leadership for growth and innovation. He has over 20 years of experience in the technology sector and is currently working as the founder of Thinkrr.ai. Welcome to the channel, and it's an honor to have you here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Sean.
Thank you. And it's late in the day after normal working hours, so I'll just start off by asking, how's your day going so far?
Fantastic. I'm on the West Coast, so for me, I'm still plugging away at the day.
Great to know. Great to know. The first portion of today's interview is going to be centered around transformative artificial intelligence technology. And really, I think stemming from your experience in leadership for growth and innovation through artificial intelligence, I think the way that we can transform companies with AI is definitely a portion of interest. So with that being said, the first question that I have in this portion is, how can companies in various sectors, maybe even ranging from like industrial companies all the way to agricultural industries, leverage AI to their benefit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take a step back and look at this a little bit holistically. So I think the best way to think about this is like when you're looking at AI, you need to have a framework to work with. And there's an inward looking framework and an outward looking framework, so internal and external. And then there are things that are for like what I would call internal changes or operational changes versus what I call game changing innovation. So regardless of your industry, if you take this framework, you've kind of got four quadrants, right? And you got to decide where you're going to invest your money into and where you want to kind of focus into. So when I think about any type of industry, so if you take, for example, you've talked about agriculture, there's, the internal focus. So where are you going to put your attention on? How does AI leverage me? How can I leverage AI for my organization within agriculture? So that's when you're going to start looking at, what are the processes that you're using to manage your books? What are you doing to manage your people? What are the things where you can free up your time or do things to make your team more efficient and work smarter, not harder, right? So that's my kind of
Yeah.
motto. And then the next part of this is really when you look at like, okay, now what can we do this game changing? And that's where it gets really exciting. Like, where can you use machine learning or algorithms to start recognizing how to, recognize plant disease or do something on that scale, right? So it becomes very, innovative. That's where you need to like invest actually dollars. So you kind of put your money beginning to like saving in cost savings, and then you reinvest that into the innovation side of it, and then decide which area you want to tackle depending on the industry.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely an approach that I'll consider in the future. And it was funny that you brought up, I guess, plant disease detection because, and as a high schooler, I do AI science fair projects, and so what I did
Okay.
was use a machine learning model basically, and then I tested numerous different neural networks out, and out of those, I found a certain one, and then I actually built like a whole device with that. It's called Smart Farm, but basically the whole goal of it is to I guess, identify crop diseases and see if a plant is healthy or not, diagnose if it diagnose a disease if the plant's unhealthy. And so that really connected. I was like, that was ringing a bell. So I just thought I'll bring that up. But yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, no, I think bringing something like that hypothetically from like the stage of like having a product to be bringing it into like real development where it's actually being used is definitely something that needs a lot of work because there's a lot of steps in between that. So I think that really addresses that. And so you also brought up the phrase work smarter, not harder. And that's something that I definitely like to take up because as a high school student, I'm like enrolled in like a bunch of things that I like to do, various passions, and obviously it takes up a lot of time and you have to manage everything properly if you want to get everything into it. So I'm definitely all for working smarter, not harder. So on that note, my second question is just going to be, how can people and companies really leverage artificial intelligence to increase their productivity?
Well, I mean, again, it's taking the same formula, right? Look first inside and then outside. So if you look at how to like increase your productivity is like, first of all, less meetings, right? So how do you start doing things that you have less meetings and that's where like using AI to follow up on things, to create tasks for you, to, there's a lot of meeting recording tools right now that go on, and then leveraging those to actually derive insights and actions and then leveraging that automatically. So there's like two parts to this puzzle, right? One is like leveraging the AI, and the other part is using smart automation to start increasing your productivity. I've literally met multitude of business owners where they're doing a lot of manual tasks today. And if you take your pipeline and work that you're doing today and you start to like digest where you have human beings actually doing things like copying, pasting, or working on visual images, or even if it comes down to like having to have, the human in the loop process is still going to be there. I still very much believe that you need to have that. But in order to increase your productivity, you need to start having what I call an AI first mindset, which is what things can I do today, A, to automate, and then B, how can I augment that with additional insights that come through using these generative AI technologies or using these large language models. And then it just doesn't come like the first day. You need to have a plan and a roadmap how you're going to start introducing that, including like what you're seeing with like Microsoft Copilot, where it can come in and start reading all of your emails and it can understand sentiment analysis of an email. It can then, based on that sentiment analysis, recommend course of actions for you to take. It improves your ability to make decisions quicker, faster, and with smarter insights. And there's more things to this. Like I said, less meetings. When I'm talking about less meetings, what I'm talking about is like a very simple tool like Loom, which people don't use today enough, in my opinion. But from that Loom video is just one example where you can start integrating AI into it, and that gets into product innovation, which is something that I'm very excited about. It's how do you take existing products and start injecting them with AI?
Yeah. And I think this really brings up the idea of averaging things out between humans and then artificial intelligence, because there was like a recent Goldman Sachs report. I believe it was, they said that AI could replace 300 million plus jobs by 2050. And so I think one thing that specifically that we must take note of when considering this development is that I think it's going to hit developing countries harder than others, right? That countries that run off things like call centers, obviously things like copy paste, that's more of data
Mhm.
science, not necessarily in always developed
Yeah.
countries, but more across the world. And so how do we also ensure that humans can keep their jobs while companies are also using AI to improve things so that it doesn't really result in job displacement?
Yeah. I'm going to say something that's becoming extremely cliche now, but I'll just say it because it's really it rings so true to me. Um, you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to the next person who knows AI. So you have to like adopt AI and you have to start really using it and learning it today, not tomorrow, today, in order to be able to like, yeah, keep your job, but also to understand how to use AI.
Exactly.
So when you talk about AI technologies, I mean, there's no reason why a company would not want to adopt AI if it can do the job better than we
Exactly.
can do it today and at a cheaper cost. It's gonna happen, right? So a good example of this is like voice technology, which is something that I'm focusing on quite a bit, which is using it for call centers, using it to even qualify leads. There are so many use cases where voice is going to play a coaching assistant. There's just an onboarding tool. There's just so many different ways that voice will play into it, and other types of modalities as well. Whether it's speech to speech, speech to video is going to become a huge one, right? And it is already, but it's as each of these technologies improve, and Ishan, we're going to see in the next like 6 to 8 months, whatever we see today is going to like you can take this recording and play it back to me. It's
Yeah,
going to be definitely 10x more. It
I
just
think
is,
so. Yeah.
right? It's just it's the way it's going to work. So people need to be concerned, and the Goldman Sachs is probably even like being conservative in the impact that it's going to have. Um, I think it's going to really, really change every single industry and every paradigm. And particularly, like right now, only 10% of organizations and enterprises are experimenting with AI. That was the number from, I think, was it November or December of last year? So even if you've increased that a little bit, imagine what happens as more and more of these organizations start to take over and to start to use it. You're going to see massive impact. And right now, we're seeing that in technology companies quite a bit, but we'll see that in other places as well. It's just about time.
I definitely think so as well, because one of the ideas is that these companies are definitely going to use AI. And as you brought up, if they're going to make more money off of it, think about it, like humans can't work 24/7, but these AI bots can. And I think that's really what hits them above people in a certain sense, especially in like redundant jobs. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is like, because of that inevitable change, I think what you said about really adopting this artificial intelligence and learning it is going to be super important, because if we don't learn it, I mean, I think that obviously people are going to lose their jobs to someone. And I think as AI takes away jobs, there's definitely going to be jobs created in AI as well. What do you think about that? Like, would that be a realistic possibility, I guess, in the near future?
I mean, 100%, right? Like you've got to understand that we've already seen the creation of a brand new, job, which is prompt engineering, right? Prompt
Yeah.
design, prompt engineer, right? I mean, it's just coming out of now. Some people say that's not going to last long. It's going to be short term and short lived. That's okay because it's just the impetus for what's to come, which is we don't know. We don't know because it's
So
going to
powerful.
be yeah, it's so powerful. I mean, the thought process of right now the way that a lot of these technologies are working, especially if we just take like a simple, an LLM that's now being used as a chatbot and the interface is text. Right now, all that interaction is human to machine, right? Um, but the agent model and the true model that we want to move and evolve to, where OpenAI is going to, is machine to machine communication, which is, I think, where, if you see something like Sora, that's probably what's being leveraged in the back end, right? It's just the beginning of it. And it's ChatGPT 5.0. So it's going to be machine to machine communication, which means that even it's going to become more apparent that there's going to be less of the traditional jobs. So what new opportunities are going to come out of this? Well, hey, what are we going to do to leverage? What are we building with these technologies? How are we generating new businesses? What are we doing today that we weren't doing yesterday, right? The whole IoT business did not exist before IoT came out, right? 5G is another example. Every time there's a technology evolution, new abilities, new possibilities, and that's why I love the word innovation and growth start to spring out, right? And
Yeah.
it's everything you see in the sci-fi movies and more, Ishan.
Yeah. No, I definitely think like innovation and growth are what we have to look at because that's what companies are going to be trying to do as AI gets more powerful. And now you brought up the statement that it's a lot of this entire, I guess, debacle is about how companies are going to inject AI into their products. So can you give some specific examples, I guess, of what this could look like? Just because like if I was a viewer, I think I'd want to visualize what how companies could take existing products and maybe put AI into them to make them better.
I'll start with a really, really simple example, something that you probably don't realize. So, like AI is already being used,
Yeah.
right? And you probably don't even know it's being used in the products that you're using.
Yeah.
So take, for example, the iPhone and the pictures that it takes with it. They're already using AI algorithms to improve those photographs, right? Which
Yeah.
is fantastic. But now imagine the next version of, we're all waiting for what's going to come out in June from Apple, and we expect it to be some AI introduction. Well, imagine if they just say, you look at your phone and you look at this picture that you have today and you say, hey, there's three people in this picture. Can you remove that third person from this picture? And it happens automatically, right? Like that's AI used and being injected into your product. It's enabling experiences that you don't have today. So now let's take it to the next level. Let's say you've seen all these new glasses that are coming out that are AI enabled, whether it's the Meta Ray-Bans or it's something from Brilliant Labs or whatever you want to say. And you've got a problem. Like you're trying to fix something underneath your sink. You've got a carburetor underneath your sink, and it's not working anymore. Well, you put on your nice Ray-Ban glasses, you look at it, and all of a sudden it tells you, "Hey, yeah, can you open up this particular part of it?" And downloads the instruction manuals, learns it in real time,
Yeah.
and then guides you to do that. And then you say, great, based on this analysis, you just saved, first of all, a call to have somebody come and inspect what happens, which is usually, easily $200-300 just for the call service, right? And now it's telling you, okay, you have a choice. You can either try to fix it yourself and I can guide it to you, or I can find for you the latest, somebody in the vicinity who's available to come and do it. How long do you want? What would you rather do? And you say, well, I like to get, I'm not a handyman, so I'll say, I want somebody to come fix it for me.
Yeah.
And they go, great. How long can you wait? Well, could you find somebody within the next couple hours? It does that search, comes back within the vicinity and tells you the budget, tells you the cost, and then you say, yes, I'd like to move forward. And then it books that appointment for you with all your voice, with that visual assistant. And that's injecting AI into not just your products line, but into your entire, like making something that's today a very difficult thing to solve for and quite tedious into something that is effortless and just like part of the world that you're living in.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's really important, like from looking at the same idea, like Meta's glasses is I think it's Tesla's Optimus is what it's called, where
Yeah.
you don't want to do your dishes, if you don't want to fold your laundry, that's what's going to do it for you. And I think that's the AI that I'd want to use. I think that's the AI that a lot of people would want to use, even if an expensive commodity. And I think that's definitely how these AI companies are going to start to profit in the future. But I guess with that being said, I definitely want to look into Thinker AI. So do you just want to explain what the whole goal of it is and what you want to do with Thinker AI?
So the incarnation of Thinkrr.ai came from the realization that, AI is not here for a short time. It's here for the long term. And to be a thought leader and to be a leader in this space is the goal of AI. We're going to focus and on the insurance industry where there are, immediate solutions where AI can help in, and that's kind of the niche that I'm focused on. And within Thinkrr.ai, what we're focusing on was, first of all, it's like how do you create more of these leads for the insurance industries? But also how do you save time for these really, really um, high commodity resources within these organizations. So they're freed up because spend a lot of time in support and helping people out. And this can be done very easily by introducing AI into the solution, bringing them up. So creating bots and creating onboarding solutions, creating support solutions into that. And then the other part of this is really interesting is the education part of it. So this is where how do you transform your organization into an AI first organization? And you do that through adoption of voice technologies. You do that through thinking about, you stop. I was going to tell you this before, Ishan, but I'll say it now. So the first thing is you have to like, whatever you're doing today, when you start doing, the favorite word should be stop. How can I do this with AI first?
Yeah.
Just a quick pause and then ask that question, and then you'll be amazed. Okay, yeah, I'll throw this into like my chat GPT to get an answer. Okay, great. Then I got that. What tools could I use to do that? And that's where we come into play. We can show you over your entire like ecosystem how you're working, where you can leverage AI throughout that. And the insurance niche is just something that is just ripe for it because it has a lot of data, it has a lot of manual efforts, and they're often trying to make efficiencies, and the efficiencies that they make can become exponential in both cost savings, but in revenue generation. And I believe it's very, very ripe for new products as well. So imagine AI-driven products that respond to, if you just look at the health industry, if it responds to what's going on within your health now, because we're not static, we're dynamic people, and we often don't contact our insurance companies to let them know what's going on with us, but AI can help with that, and that's kind of the innovation part of where my company's going.
Yeah. And I think, would I be correct in saying that it's almost like an AI consulting firm in a way for insurance?
Absolutely. I mean, consulting and education are tied to the hip. We have to provide those services. So one of the things that I'm bringing out is my AI executive leadership course, which will be available for anybody in a leadership position to take and to quickly get up to speed, not just on what is going on with AI today and how to build your roadmap, but also give you the tools to understand how you can start to go back and build that roadmap yourself and inject AI into your business.
Yeah. And so would I also be correct in saying that you're going to benefit from new innovations that we see because like as there's more diverse AI technology, technically, wouldn't you be able to give, I guess, more nuanced solutions to the people that I guess you're consulting for?
So the word personalization comes to mind
Yeah,
when you're talking,
personalization. Yeah,
right? So yeah, absolutely. You're gonna need to tailor these solutions to them, but that is where it becomes context sensitive and where you need to be able to have the data. So the whole thing's that where you see the trend going today is how do I fine tune this LLM for my particular niche and what I'm doing? And that's exactly kind of where I'm leading towards.
yeah, perfect. And I guess with that being said, I want to transition into the second portion of today's interview, which is just going to be focused around responsible artificial intelligence technology. One thing that I've observed is that in many tools, like even ChatGPT, for example, I think it was found that five accounts actually were created across the world, not in the US, but these accounts were being used for malicious purposes, like creating
Mhm.
content for phishing and things like that. Things that AI should never be used for because it's such a powerful technology. And I think everyone that's saying that if it falls in the right hands, it's going to be disastrous, is completely correct in thinking that. And that's why I think one of the biggest things that we need to focus on is assuring that AI never falls into the hands of people like conspirators. And so, on that note, my first question is, how can we make sure that AI is more human-centered as opposed to turning into a malicious technology?
Um, Gonna kind of like say something controversial here. I don't
Go
think you
for it.
can stop it.
Huh?
I don't think you can stop it. I think there's always going to be malicious attackers. So, like for example, I'm talking about AI and voice. There are people that can take, a 5 minute, a 3 minute recording and basically, you know, create your voice again and then make phone
Yeah.
calls to people who are your loved ones, right? And start to like actually, say, hey, I'm stuck in this place. I need you to wire money to me. I mean, this is not going to happen. It is happening.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to have to become smarter and wiser about how do we deal with things like that. So a good example of something like that is make sure you have, secret words that you've created within your family and closed ones to know that you're actually talking to somebody who's real and knows this, right? Because that's not something that they can get access to. But, with all of our lives being digital and being out there, it's very real. So that's a real thing. But then think about organizations that are trying to like stop these malicious attacks. Um, I think cybersecurity is a real need. It's going to become very specialized. You're going to see more and more smart cybersecurity technologies being used, like honeypots that are
Yeah.
going to be created, right? Which I think is, absolutely needed. And they'll be session based, not just WAF based. And the thing that comes to mind when this is like you talked about responsible AI. Well, that's a whole big, like a big problem because I mean, even if you just start and look at like how ChatGPT has been, trained on the data, it's been
Bias.
trained on exactly all of the internet is completely biased on everything that's out there. And the way to get around that is not obvious because we're just going to train on more and more data. And to get the data, we don't know how good that data is. Now, people are taking those data sets and start to fine tune them to know about their domain specific things, but those inherent biases are not gone. They're still
Yeah.
there.
It, they're
And
they're really hard to remove, I think, because like the way that you train these LLMs is by taking data from the internet, right? And it's like if everything on the internet's biased, I think yeah, you can't do anything about it. It's almost
and there's a reason why, Elon Musk created Grok. He created it and trained it on specific types of text that adopted a certain personality, right? And if you see what type of audience and what goes on in Twitter, it kind of has that
yeah,
attitude that goes along with it. Um, but I think there's a strategy still to solve this. And I think the strategy comes down to diversifying, getting government regulation in place.
yeah,
Um, and I think it even comes down to like it might become something that is um, needing a national, like a national is not the right word, a global presence, like the United Nations. Something that oversees what's going on because between countries and between different parts of the world, we're going to see yet more and more of these types of cybersecurity attacks coming in, whether that's coming from, the east part of the world or the west part of the world. It's just going to happen. And this year, we're going to see on full display with over 80 countries going into the elections. So
yes,
it's
yeah,
going to be,
definitely.
so it's going to become even more apparent. And it is already like your news is now no longer something that you can trust. Yeah.
I think that was great that you brought up elections because one of the examples was, I think it was in the New Hampshire primaries for the Democratic Party. There was some video, I think it was of Joe Biden saying you shouldn't vote or something like that, something that obviously seemed very illogical. And at that point, people didn't really believe it but my biggest concern is that you can make AI so believable that it might
Mhm.
actually influence elections, especially not in the United States per se, but in other countries. I think that's really a big scare that we have. But I think 2024 will be the great year for that because this is the first time that we're going to see the impact that AI truly has on like I think on a global level, I guess I can say that because when we have so many countries going into elections, so I think we must take note of that. And I want to touch on the last thing that you brought up, and that'll be the last.
Ishan, mark my words. Sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen.
No, it's all right. It always happens when I'm on phone calls too.
Um, one, AI will define the election results. It will absolutely define the election results. And the people that learn how to use AI and leverage it to their advantage are the ones that are going to come out on top. It's just it's an absolute it's going to happen. The only thing I can say as a citizen and somebody who's here is how are you going to inform yourself the right way of what is true and not true? And to me, that is the opportunity that lays in front of us. If somebody wants to grab the moment now, it's how do you try to provide unbiased, true, non-AI influenced opinions and information on the elections.
Yeah. I think the elections are definitely like the area that we need to look at. And I will mark your words in that I'm gonna see exactly what happens with these elections because with how much marketing that you can truly do with artificial intelligence. I mean, if we're seeing people using AI for phishing and it's that powerful, think about if it's used in a good way, exactly how good that can get. And I think that's really where responsible AI goes. And one last thing I want to touch on is you brought up, I guess, regulatory bills, and that's a big point of discussion. I think to specifically, we must note two bills. The EU's AI regulatory bill, that one was more recent. And then back around October, November of this past year, on 2023, we saw President Biden's executive order on AI. And the fact that I think he released an executive order already shows that it's a really powerful thing because he doesn't send out executive orders for every little thing. And the fact that he recognized that AI needs that sort of recognition is what really shows us that even at the global level, we're going to see AI having a massive impact. So on that note, my final question is, what type of legislation and I guess what type of legislation and methodology should we include in regulatory bills to assure that they're truly impactful on mitigating the negative impacts?
I mean, first of all, most of these regulations that have been written right now are really they're written in
Broad.
language. Yeah, they're very broad and it's very easy to kind of like work through them. So they're not really meaningful. Right. So that's part of the challenge. When I think of what is needed, I think you need AI to fight AI. Um, I think you can't enforce regulation without having people that can be awake 24/7 and combat the type of, technology we're dealing with. So, again, AI first mindset, right? Governments need to be the first ones adopting AI, not the last ones.
Yeah. And that brings us to a really good point, I guess.
Which
And
is sad because most of them don't.
yeah, I guess still. I mean, I don't think there is really. I mean, I know one thing, and this isn't necessarily a good thing about AI being included in the government. I think it was at least some sort of automation algorithms or even AI. I think the IRS was using AI for things like tax returns or along the lines of tax audits, and they found that in a certain study, like minorities were more disadvantaged because of the bias that these AI models have. It's really scary to think about because it's even confusing to go linking from taxes and I guess minorities and things like that all the way to going to artificial intelligence and how it's trained because that's a true example. The bias that you put into AI is going to have an impact. So I think governments need to make AI first, and it needs to be really, really good to it because the government controls everything. I mean, and it needs to do everything the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more time we have, but I'll just say this in a very like how I envision it. The way I envision this is that there is a um direction that a government needs to take. And the direction they need to take is one about how do I benefit the people the
Yeah,
most with this? And how do I protect the people the most? Because ultimately, that is where it needs to be on the forefront and the cutting edge. So we talked about cybersecurity. We talked about, understanding malicious attacks, things that can bring down the entire country's economy or shape an election. These are the types of problems that I think, not how the IRS can catch more people cheating and scamming on money. I mean, sure, you can do that too. You can also figure out there's so many unbelievable opportunities for them to generate more revenue. And unfortunately, if government thinks like businesses and enterprises, that's what they will do. But if they think about the greater good and what the real threat is, I think they'll understand that they need to invest in a different part of it. And that's what I meant when I said government needs to invest in AI.
And I think this brings us to a perfect concluding point of really human-centered artificial intelligence going into the future. And with that being said, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Sean.
Of course. And for anyone watching this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below.